Hi, I'm TJ Jones, the host of the State of the Saints podcast, and I ask that you like, share, and comment on this video. Thanks for watching. All I gotta say is, who dat?
Hey, don't let these tears fool you. There's all dog around this mug. I'm good.
Where they at though? What's going on, Who Dat Nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones. And yes, I am the host of the State of the Saints podcast. Thank you so much for checking out the State of the Saints podcast, where we talk, that's right, New Orleans Saints. Thank you so much for choosing the State of the Saints podcast. Shouts out to everybody in the chat. Shouts out to everybody listening around the country, around the world, wherever you are, wherever you may be. On this edition, we're going to be talking about tight end Foster Moreau and him signing with the New Orleans Saints and what this can actually mean for the tight end room. And, of course, we're going to be taking some of your questions. And I'm even going to be opening up the phone lines in just a few minutes to get your thoughts on the signing of Foster Moreau. First off, I want to say thank you to everybody that checked out yesterday's episodes of both the State of the Saints and the Gumbo Pot. Both episodes were pre-recorded. I was actually kind of occupied yesterday. Those that have been following the State of the Saints podcast, you know that I have a 3-year-old son. Next week is going to turn 4. So trying to get him enrolled in a 4K program. So with that, it's a lot of interviewing. It's a lot of touring. So just trying to get the Packy man straight. And I cannot believe I'm saying this, getting him ready to go to elementary school, which is insane, man. I mean, time is really flying. But thank you all so much for being here. Thank you so much for checking out those episodes. Also, I got to say this. First, hit the like button if you enjoy the State of the Saints podcast. If you enjoy the show, hit that like button. Also, subscribe if you're new to the channel. And also check out the Gumbo Pot Sports podcast that's available on YouTube as well. And also the website, gumbopotsports.com. We're off and running, Who Dat Nation. We're off and running, sports fans. Just wrote some articles today. One about Jake Haener, the Fresno State quarterback that was drafted in the 4th round. And also wrote an article today about Hendon Hooker possibly waiting in the wings for quite some time before he actually can hit the field. So make sure you check those articles out. Let me know what you think. Subscribe to Gumbo Pot Sports and just let me know how I'm doing. I'm over there. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Foster Moreau. For those that have been following this guy, this New Orleans Saints were extremely interested in Moreau a few months ago. He came in to talk and have a little chit chat with the New Orleans Saints. And of course, with that, the Saints were happy with him. So they wanted to do a physical. And with that physical, they found out that he was dealing with Hodgkin's lymphoma, a rare form of, cancer, that infects your white blood cells, something that not many people experience. But it probably was a really good, well, it wasn't probably, it was a really good thing that Foster Moreau actually came in and took that physical because he had no idea. And who's to say if he wouldn't have took that physical, if he would have found out, and if he did, would have been too late. So that is a plus. That is a blessing in disguise. And of course, he was going to step away from football, which is understandable. The most important thing about all this is not just the talent, but the actual person, right? And he decided that he was going to step away, try to focus on his health. But it seems like he's turning a corner and some positive things started to happen. And so positive that he's going to be able to play in 2023. Which is, man, that's just remarkable. So shouts out to Foster Moreau getting that good news. And when teams start to find out about it, they start reaching out to him. right? They started to reach out to him and they wanted to sign him. But of course, the Saints won. The Saints won the sweepstakes, and Foster Moreau has signed a 3-year deal with the New Orleans Saints, a 3-year deal with $8 million of guaranteed money. He comes back to the state of Louisiana. He's originally from New Orleans. He went to Jesuit High School, played football at LSU before being drafted in the 4th round by the Raiders. In his career, he has 91 catches, 1,107 yards, and 12 touchdowns. He had his best year statistically last year when he had 33 catches for 420 yards and 2 touchdowns. So Foster Moreau definitely comes in. He fills a huge void that was left. Adam Troutman being traded to the Denver Broncos, and Saints fans were wondering what the New Orleans Saints were going to do at the tight end position. Last episode that we did live, we talked a little bit about that, right? We talked about the tight end position. Did a show yesterday talking about the tight end position. So everybody wanted to know what the Saints were going to do. And now that they bring in Foster Moreau, who has experience at the tight end position and also has a rapport with new Saints quarterback Derek Carr, they can hit the ground running. Moreau knows Carr and Carr knows Moreau, so that's a plus. The fact that he actually gets to come home and puts on for his city is a plus. And also, we all know that the biggest gripe that we've had as Saints fans, well, some Saints fans, is the fact that the New Orleans Saints don't really go after LSU players. So for the second year in a row, the New Orleans Saints have went after LSU players. So right now, it seems like the New Orleans Saints are doing all the right things to make the fan base happy. But I'm more happy about Moreau actually getting this positive news. Now, do I feel like, the Saints are just going to go ahead and just put him out there right away? Absolutely not. The fact is he's still dealing, with the Hodgkin's lymphoma, still dealing with the treatments. So the Saints are going to be very, very careful at how they're using him. I expect for the New Orleans Saints to kind of gradually ingratiate him into what they're actually doing. I know OTAs are coming up in a couple of weeks. I don't expect for him to just go out there and just be wall to wall with it. But I do expect for him to be able to play when the 2023 regular season starts, which is a plus. So congratulations to Foster Moreau, not just on the signing of the 3-year deal by the New Orleans Saints, but getting such positive news. That is the best thing about all this, getting such positive news, knowing that what happened is not going to affect him long term, right? You'll get opportunity to live a happy and healthy life and also continue to do something that you love to do, something you've been doing since you were a small child. So Foster Moreau is now a new member of the New Orleans Saints. How is this going to fit the New Orleans Saints offense? I think he's going to fit in quite well. Once again, I mentioned Adam Troutman leaving, going to the Denver Broncos via trade. The Saints traded him to move up in the draft to the Denver Broncos. Adam Troutman goes to the Denver Broncos and alongside Sean Payton, the guy that drafted him. So he'll get opportunity to prove himself. He feels like he was being held back. He felt like the offense was not in his favor, felt like he wasn't, reaping the benefits and being the tight end that he wanted to be because of what happened. Me personally, do I feel like he could have got more opportunities? Maybe, but the opportunities that he got, he kind of squandered. So it's kind of hard for me to sit up here and just say, well, they should have used him more, because when the opportunities presented themselves, Adam Troutman didn't really deliver. So you have Foster Moreau coming in. I feel like, to me, it's an upgrade over Adam Troutman. This is a guy that's not afraid to catch the ball in traffic. He's a better blocker, in my opinion, than Adam Troutman is, and he's a better red zone threat than Adam Troutman. And I'm looking at guys like Juwan Johnson to come and step up. I look at Juwan Johnson being that number one tight end for the New Orleans Saints, especially as a pass catcher. I look at Foster Moreau probably adding a little bit of sauce to it, but mostly helping out in the running game and also being able to help out in the red zone. So this is going to be a great 1-2 punch to me. As long as both of these guys stay healthy, the Saints should be good at the tight end position. We know that Derek Carr likes to utilize tight ends. He's been using tight ends since he's got into the league and has done a really good job doing that. So Foster Moreau and Juwan Johnson, maybe a little bit of sprinkle of Lucas Kroll every now and then. I think that the Saints have a formidable bunch at the tight end position. So hopefully this can put some of you members of the Who Dat Nation's minds at ease knowing that the New Orleans Saints have a guy like Moreau on the team, a guy that's a hometown favorite, and a guy that's very, very easy to root for. But let me go ahead and read some of your comments, and then I'll open up the phone lines. What do you all think about Foster Moreau? What do you all think about Saints news in general? If you got something, just make sure that you put it down in the chat. Eminem says, how come the Saints don't really line up two tight ends at once, like a tight end on the right side and a tight end, tight end on the left side, like New England used to do? Get some water real quick. Excuse me. Got something caught in my throat, man, a little cough. But anyway, why don't they do that? To answer your question, I have no idea. I have no idea why the New Orleans Saints don't do that. It did work out with Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez. It was a great 1-2 punch. But if you're being honest, who else has done that? Like, seriously, who else has really utilized the tight end position with a 1-2 punch like that? I ain't really seen it. It's usually like one dominant tight end, and then you have another guy that serves as a blocker, right? A guy that serves as like that blocking tight end. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't know, but that doesn't always work. Like, I'm trying to think about a team that actually had two tight ends, right? And that was just absolutely dominating and taking the lead by storm, other than Hernandez and Gronk. Like, I ain't really seen that. I mean, you've seen a little bit of that, with Philadelphia, when Dallas Goedert was a rookie, and for a short period of time, they had, another tight end, a guy who ended up getting traded to the Arizona Cardinals. His name escapes me right now. But, you've seen a little bit of that. But even with that, Dallas Goedert wasn't the Dallas Goedert that he is now. You rarely ever see like two tight end sets, like and two tight ends just absolutely dominating the league. So it's always like a really good pass catching tight end, and it's always another guy that's above average blocker that can probably help you in the red zone. So with that, I'm not sure. Thank you very much, Mario. Zach Ertz. I mean, his name escaped me, but yeah, it was like Zach Ertz was like the dominant tight end, right? And Dallas Goedert was kind of coming into his own. He wasn't the Dallas Goedert who we see today. It was him in his infancy. So, you don't really see that much. You don't see really too many tight end sets. And teams don't feel like they're utilizing that enough, because if you look at the New England Patriots, there wasn't a dominant wide receiver during that time on their team that was just, out there. It was just a bunch of like smaller guys like Wes Welker and stuff like that. It wasn't a guy. I think Randy Moss was gone during this time. He was gone. He was the dominant wide receiver that they had during that time. But, they had to rely on the two tight ends, and they were getting a lot of targets because they didn't have any star wide receivers. The receivers that they had were kind of undersized, and they used the big guys in the middle of the field. But the Saints don't have to do that, because if you start using those two tight end sets, you got to think about like what's going to happen with Olave, what's going to happen with Michael Thomas, right? What's going to happen with some of these other guys that can go get it and get targets for you. So you got to take that into consideration as well. Josh says, I agree with you on that, TJ. Glad that he is healthy. From a football perspective, we will see if he actually moves the needle, but I'm in wait and see mode. Yeah, look, I'm not expecting for him to go out here and just dominate. Like, I don't want anybody to get under that, get that indication that he is going to be a dominant tight end. If he does become a dominant tight end, it would be a shock to me. Do I feel like he can be a key contributor? Absolutely. And I just think that if you look at the New Orleans Saints team, that's all you really need. You need a guy that's going to be a contributor, right? You don't need somebody that's just going to go out there and get 1,000 yards as a tight end like Jimmy Graham did. Like, Jimmy Graham was just a matchup nightmare, right? But in the process, you still had Marcus Colston out there. You had Lance Moore. You had some guys that were able to make some noise and do some things. But, I don't expect for him to be that way. I think that we start looking at guys like Travis Kelce. We start looking at guys like George Kittle. We look at how dominant those guys are as pass catchers, and we want our tight ends to look like that. But if you look at it, for the most part, you know, they're probably the most dominant receiver on the team when you think about it, right? Like, you have Deebo Samuels out there, but Deebo Samuels, you know, you can line him up in a backfield. You can line him up as a wide receiver, but I'm going to just be honest. Like, when I think about Deebo Samuel, I think about his physicality. I don't think about his footwork. I don't think about his skills or his ability as a wide receiver. Look at a guy like Brandon Ayuk. He can take the top off the defense, but, I mean, I wouldn't put him as a top 10 route runner. You know, it's always like the tight end is probably like the most, you know, the best receiver on the team, right? You got some guys that can contribute, but the tight end is just that much better than everybody else. But with the Saints, I mean, you got Michael Thomas out there, you got Chris Olave, so you don't have to really rely on getting so many targets to the tight end. Now, if the game ends up being that way and he goes over 100 yards because the way the defense is actually scheming for Thomas and Olave, then that's great. But I'm not expecting for him to go out there and be a 1,000-yard receiver. I just think that we get this false sense of reality of what a tight end is supposed to be because we see outliers out here. And I'm calling them outliers because Travis Kelce is an outlier to me. George Kittle is an outlier to me, right? These guys aren't you ain't about to find a tight end that's a number one receiver on many teams. It's probably like a very short percentage of a tight end just wreaking havoc in the National Football League. Right? I mean, we just look at those guys and they play on a big stage. We see them in primetime constantly, and we just think that's what a tight end is supposed to be. And if it's not, then he's not good enough, but that's not the case. I'm going to go ahead and open up the phone lines here. I apologize for coughing. Been dealing with a little bit of a little sinus cold, man. This weather has been absolutely crazy out here in South Carolina. You wake up in the morning, it's about 40-some-odd degrees, and then the next thing you know is about 80, and you're walking in and out of here. So got a little bit of a cough, you know what I'm saying? But I'm cool, man. I apologize for coughing in the mic, but thank you all for being here. Once again, the link is down in the chat if you want to talk a little bit about Foster Moreau or you want to talk a little bit about Saints football. Of course, it's already been confirmed by Nick Underhill that the Saints will not be taking advantage in the international series. They will not be playing abroad this season. I know there were reports that said that the New Orleans Saints were supposed to play in Germany against the New England Patriots, but that would not be the case. The New Orleans Saints will be stateside throughout the entire 2023 season. So I don't know if anybody heard that or have you heard the reports, but the Saints will be playing all their games stateside. We're going to go ahead and go to Chosen. Chosen, how you doing, man?
What's going on, man? It's been a while, Tim. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing all right, man. How you been?
Oh, man, I've been pretty good. Taking it one day at a time. Been crazy out here in Louisiana, man, with the weather and everything.
Yeah, I heard, man.
Yeah, man. So that's typical Louisiana stuff, man. You from down here, Tim. You already know how it goes, TJ.
Right.
But
right.
yeah, man, how everything going with you, though, man? Like outside of work and everything, but like how the family, everybody doing, man? First and foremost.
Everybody doing fine, man. Everybody doing great. A lot of positive things. Had a little bit of some health issues last week, man. But I'm good all in all, man.
All right, man. You know who that next going to continue praying for you, man. And shout out to Lil Paxton, man, with everything he got going on, man, and everything. And but yeah, man. Foster Moreau. It's crazy that we're doing a show about this today. Right. Because I know last night, man, I was just sitting down and I was thinking when I got off from work, I was like, man, like with Foster Moreau, if he was just so happy to get cleared and able to play, I wouldn't see any other place where he would want to go play for other than the team that actually found and was able to diagnose this problem. You know, so I can see that being as in New Orleans, y'all looked out for me and my family. I want to dedicate such and such this time to help y'all contribute to win and bring something back to the city. I thought it would have been cool if he was to do something like that. So I'm excited about it. Mm-hmm. I'm like you. I don't want to rush him back just to say, oh, man, look at this, just for a story, like a comeback story like that. Right. I just want us to continue to support this guy, take it one day at a time, and let him, get his reps in the way he could, and also allow Juwan Johnson to continue with the heavy load and just be a 1-2 punch. But I don't want us to put too much on him. You know what I'm saying? Him coming back, just kind of let him find his foot and ease his way in there. You know, him and Derek Carr gonna be on the same page regardless. You know, those
Right.
two already have history. So I was
Right.
just like for us to just let us to just kind of let him feel his way in, work his way in. Don't put too much on him. Just let him rev up his engine. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? Like you
Yeah.
said, we don't want a cold motor, so let's let us work that motor in. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, look, I agree. Look, I was more concerned about his health, and that's going to be my main concern. I think the guy's a really talented tight end. I think he's well rounded as a tight end, but the biggest concern was his health, and the fact that he got such a positive feedback about his overall health and where his career can go is a plus. And him signing with the New Orleans Saints, it adds some depth to the room. I was looking at the list of tight ends that were available on yesterday, and
Right. It wasn't that. I didn't know
yeah,
those
it
guys.
wasn't
That's
yeah,
just me lying.
right.
That's
It
just
was
me
a
lying.
bunch of guys, I'm saying, that you wouldn't be very, very comfortable with, and more than likely, probably the guys that are already on your team are going to beat these guys out. What you have is a bunch of guys who probably had a history of being injured more times than not, or they're a little bit over the hill and past their prime. But this guy, he comes in, he's 26 years old, 6'6", and he has something to offer. So it's definitely a plus that they actually be able to pick him up, and for a fact that he'll probably more than likely be here till he is at least 30. So that actually solves some of the problems that you may have at the tight end position.
Right, and yesterday, man, when you mentioned that, when I got home late, I ended up catching the show late. Like I said,
Right.
I didn't catch it live. So
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at when you went through the free agent list. I actually was going through the list myself before I even saw the show that you had actually did that. And the only two names that really rung a bell was Cameron Brady and Kyle Rudolph. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? Like I
Right.
didn't really know those other. I couldn't tell you those other tight ends. Somebody paid me $1 million. Like they
Right.
said, Chose, man, what is tight end and who he played for? I was like, man, I can't tell you. All I knew was Cameron Brady and Kyle Rudolph. So like you said, it really wasn't much to pick from. Kind of like when you go in that thrift store, you trying to look for something.
Right. Right.
It's
Pretty
like,
much.
no disrespect to them guys. I'm not saying they got thrift store talent, but I'm just saying, like,
Right.
it's not really much that you really can pick from out of free agents this year, bro. So I'm
Yeah.
glad that we was able to sign it. And it kind of makes you feel like, man, the Saints, how they was just so freely ready to trade with Adam Troutman and not really so much drafting a higher number pick of a tight end. It kind of puts you on a field where make you want to think, well, maybe they kind of knew all along that this guy was going to pull through. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe they kind
Yeah.
of was keeping that ace in the hole. Like
Right.
using that as that little draw four card and that wild card, and kind of
Right.
waiting to see. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? But I'm glad it worked out. I'm glad this guy got an opportunity, bro. And I'm excited to see what this offense gonna do just another way. But like we say, bro, along with these running backs and stuff, it ain't gonna mean nothing if we don't use these guys how we need to. Like we can have all the talent in the world, but it's up to DA and these guys to burn the midnight on and get these offensive coaches together and put these guys in position because we got the talent now. So now it's really no excuse. You know what I'm saying? So I'm looking forward. Like it looks good on paper, but it all gotta come together. And it all starts with OTAs, start
Mm-hmm.
with minicamp. It just, so I'm excited, Tim, bro, and I thank you for allowing me to speak, man. And that's all
All
I
right.
got.
All right. No problem, Chosen, man. Call back anytime. Appreciate the call, man.
Thanks, man.
All right. Take care. Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting point that Chosen made. Maybe the Saints had some intel about where, his prognosis was and, the chances of him making this recovery. And maybe that had a lot to do with them not selecting the tight end. Because if you look at this draft, I mean, it was pretty deep at tight end. Like you look at like the third round, second round, I mean, you start to see like tight ends going back to back to back. That's a testament to how deep this draft was. And you could have easily got yourself a talented, busy tight end that can get extremely busy offensively. And the Saints not pulling the trigger on guys like Darnell Washington, right? Not pulling the trigger on guys like Luke Musgraves. The fact that they decided to wait, I mean, they said good things come to those who wait. So they waited for Foster Moreau, and look where it got them. So he got signed with the New Orleans Saints, and I think they're pretty excited about it. And I know he's excited about it. Like anytime you get opportunity to go play for your hometown team, I know a part of you is happy about that because you can, contribute to the success of that team. And who's to say, if you can help them get to a championship, putting on for your city, how special would that indeed be? But we're gonna go ahead and go to Jerry. Jerry, how you doing, man?
What's going on, TJ? How you doing, brother?
Hey, I'm doing fine, man. Thank you for chiming in. Appreciate your time, man. What you got for us?
Oh man, no, I like that signing what we got,
Mm-hmm.
and hey, let's get it going. I mean, I like that Foster signing, and I mean, I'm glad he's doing better, health wise. So
Right.
we'll see what this guy is capable of.
Mm-hmm.
I know he was with Carr in Las Vegas.
Right.
Hey, let's see what happens.
Yeah. Look, I look at him as a supporting cast tight end. I mean, you had Darren Waller out there, and Darren Waller was the tight end that was getting the majority of the targets and the guy that the offense was looking to make plays. And then you had him, Foster, out there probably helping out in the red zone, maybe moving the chains, helping in run blocking. So I think that it's probably going to be something similar to that with Juwan Johnson and him.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And TJ, as you notice, I'm still wearing the shirt.
Yeah, man, I see that, man. I see that you're wearing a shirt, and I appreciate it, man. I appreciate that a lot. Yeah, thank you, man.
Hey, like you said, I've been your big supporter since day one when you started this podcast, and here you are years later.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's been a crazy ride, man. When we first started, I mean, that was like the first logo that I had as far as with the show. So, man, you that shows to show you how long you've been rocking with the show, and I appreciate that, man. Thank you for that.
Had to hold up that one.
Yeah, man, been there since the beginning, and like I said, I appreciate that. But I look at the tight end position, Jerry, and like I said, I like what Juwan Johnson can bring to the table. I look at him for being that pass catching tight end. But I think that with Foster Moreau, I think it's more of a depth thing because we was talking about what the Saints are going to do at the tight end position. Are they going to sign themselves a veteran? Are they going to roll with some of the younger players that they actually have? So now we see, that they, will add depth. And I just think that it's going to be a plus, man. It's going to be a plus. I don't expect for him to be George Kittle or Travis Kelce or nothing like that, but I definitely expect for him to be better than Adam Troutman. I can tell you that.
Oh, yeah.
Your thoughts on that, though? It was Adam Troutman, right? Adam Troutman was, got traded during draft day. According to sources,
that was a good trade.
He wasn't happy. Yeah, he wasn't happy with, his role with the team. Felt like he can do better. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on Adam Troutman, man? And his thoughts about being a bigger contributor.
I think he's gonna do better where he is right now. I mean, he won a whole lot when he was with us. So now Sean Payton got him in Denver. So
yeah,
and they like Jim Moore say, I'm not a big fish guy.
Right. Yeah, I'm not. Look, I never had anything against Adam Troutman. I think that when I look,
just didn't get used too much.
Right. I look at it like when he first came out of Dayton. I think that everybody just thought, and I thought too, like he was going to be a really good pass catching tight end and probably struggling blocking. But he ended up coming in the league being a better blocker than a pass catcher. So it was just weird to actually see that. And I think that the expectations of him being a pass catcher was the reason why a lot of Saints fans became much frustrated with him. Because once again, I know we look at the Travis Kelce's and the Dallas Goederts and the George Kittles, and those guys can go get it as receivers. But I think people tend to forget that the tight end position, like if you got to be a really good blocker. So if you can go out there and block in a run game and maybe catch some passes, to extend some plays. I think about like a Jay Novacek back in the day, the former Dallas Cowboy tight end. Jay Novacek went out here like mossing nobody or nothing like that. But when Troy Aikman needed a first down, that was Jay Novacek. And I just think that we kind of, turn our nose up at the Jay Novacek type tight ends, and we want the Kelce's and we want the Kittles. But everybody's not going to be like that, So if he can come in and he can extend a drive, or he can come in and help you out in the red zone, score a touchdown or two, like Josh Hill style, I don't think anybody will have a problem with it, man. Not at all.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And another thing, TJ, I'm gonna touch up on, and I'm sure you've already heard. I don't know if you haven't already, but I mean, you said on your show Tuesday. I think or something about about the NFL schedule coming out Thursday and seeing who the Saints play, if they're gonna play in Germany or the UK. I found that out earlier today, and hey, I feel more comfortable with the Saints playing at home than to be overseas or somewhere. I mean, it's much better. It gives them a chance to stay home and be with the Who Dat Nation and everybody, so they can do what they do best.
Yeah, I mean, look, before this whole situation in the UK last year, I mean, the Saints were undefeated, abroad. But I do feel like this, man. Having to travel and being over there and have to adjust to the time and all that kind of stuff, and then also, worrying about accommodations for your family, and that could be a little bit of a distraction. And I'm pretty sure that organizations would rather play stateside than to play abroad, even though it's a great opportunity. And what you see on television when it comes to like the fan base, they're extremely excited because you got a large fan base that you can tap into out there, and they're ready to take advantage of that. It's almost like when you don't have experience anything. Like I know you can relate to this. It's almost like the Backlash pay-per-view in Puerto Rico that just happened this weekend with the WWE, right? They don't really come to Puerto Rico. I mean, that crowd was just hot, right? There was
bro, that crowd was
like one of the best crowds.
It was crazy,
right?
It was crazy, bro.
Yeah, because it doesn't happen often, and they're extremely excited about it. So they want to take advantage of the opportunity. People probably spending their last little bit of money to come over there because they like, man, I might not get a chance to see the Detroit Lions again. I may not get a chance to see the New England Patriots again. And, it might be a while before I see that. So you have a fan base that is chomping at the bit to be able to cheer, for their respective teams that they root in the States. So I think, honestly, that, it's a great opportunity for the fans over there. But, I guarantee you, if you was to be honest, if organizations were to be honest, they'll be like, man, I'd rather just play stateside because that can indeed be a lot. But you got anything else for it, Jerry?
Yeah, I mean, and to relate to what you were just saying, for example, look at the USFL. I mean, think about last year; they only had two places to play.
Right.
And that was Birmingham and Canton.
Right.
This year, now they got Birmingham, Detroit, Memphis, and Canton now.
Yep.
So they don't expand it. So it's just kind of like in the NFL, because in case if they want to go play a team like in Germany, Mexico, and the UK,
right?
Ain't no telling where they're gonna play next. Yep. They might even go to Japan or China. You never know what the NFL is going to do next.
Yeah. It's all about the response. The response that they got playing in Germany last year with Tampa Bay was there. I can't remember who they played, but I don't want to say Seattle. But it was just the response that they actually had, and the crowd was live, and they were on their feet and just chanting from the start of the whistle to the end. They want to be able to replicate that. And if, the fan can, return, I guess them coming out there with enthusiasm and energy, they're going to continue to do that because, they love football. So, I mean, but I'm not mad at the New Orleans Saints not having to travel. I understand how people may feel. Some people in the chat here feel like that, they're happy about it. They don't have to travel. It's less of a distraction. I agree with that. Yeah. I just think that when it comes to like preparation and stuff like that, that's one thing that I have to give credit to Sean Payton about. Like Sean Payton was really meticulous about the way they traveled, the weather, what type of shoes they have. I mean, all those different things made him meticulous, but at the same time, the Saints they over prepared, but they were always prepared. But when it comes to like Dennis Allen, I'm kind of questioning that. I'm kind of questioning some of the tactics that he has as far as being that leader and having these guys prepared. Now, they did a good job out there in Cleveland, when they had that below zero weather. The game plan was pretty good there. But for the most part, when it comes to preparation in certain situations, I'm still questioning Dennis Allen's move. So that's one thing I will say, that Sean Payton had this guys prepared. But as of right now, as Dennis Allen is starting to get acclimated as the Saints head coach, I would rather see the Saints play stateside till they figure it out, and he instills enough confidence in us as fans, that he can actually get the job done no matter where they play.
Right.
Yeah, but Jerry, thank you so much. Appreciate your time, man. Make sure you call back anytime, man.
We'll do it. Shouts out to everybody in the chat. Who that to y'all? Much love to y'all. Love y'all. Let's keep it going. Who that?
Thank you, Jerry, man. Appreciate it.
You too,
bro. Yeah. Man, shouts out to Jerry, man. For real, like I'm okay with the games being played across the pond and, playing in the UK and playing in Germany. But I just feel like you got to have the right coach. You got to have the right personnel. You got to have you got to have some things going to make sure that they actually are, like I said, meticulous about the moves that they make. And I just feel like if you're not, then you're going to find yourself, losing these games and not being prepared. Because, I mean, they thought that they had a good game plan, because I think they left out as soon as they had that loss to the Carolina Panthers. They went right from Charlotte to the UK, and they stayed there, right? And they were there like the majority of the week. The Minnesota Vikings showed up on Thursday, and they still beat the Saints. So, it's about being prepared and making sure that it's not just about, we just going to leave early, but by leaving early, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to make sure that everything is in place? I get the whole sleeping regimen and stuff like that, and making sure that you have that balance and all that. I get it, but at the end of the day, you still got to be prepared when it comes to the field as well. And I think that the Minnesota Vikings were, prepared, and the Saints, they did their best, but they could have done better. I'm gonna go to Dalton. Dalton, what's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you, bro?
And I'm doing fine, man. Thank you for chiming in. What you got for us?
No problem. I just want to talk about the Saints signing a tight end. Foster. I don't know how you pronounce his last name.
Moreau.
Moreau. I mean, I like the signing, don't get me wrong, though, but I think 3 year is kind of reached. The only reason why depends on this cancer treatment thing. I figured they should sign like 1 or 2 year deal. That's just my opinion.
Well, I mean, look, I understand your skepticism about it, but what I mentioned about this Hodgkin's lymphoma, and I'm not a medical professional, but from what I read about it, and based on like his prognosis, it's something that very few people have, but it is treatable, right? So it can be treated, and you can live out the rest of your life with like really no complications. So I understand where you're coming from with that, but that's when you have to rely on the doctors, and you have to rely, on your team doctors, medical personnel, what the history of the prognosis has been, what are the statistics of guys making a full comeback or ladies making a full comeback. And I'm pretty sure the Saints did that. And I'm pretty sure Dalton had played into them considering Foster Moreau. So I want to believe that it wasn't just that it's going to be something that's just going to sneak up on them and be like, you know what, we shouldn't have did this. I think that they were prepared, and they understand what's coming with it. Luckily, what we're hearing is he's going to make a full recovery. He's going to more than likely be able to play this season. So that's a plus, man.
Well, that's what part I like about it. Looking forward to us. And I'm glad Rick Barr's got another tight end to reunite, though.
Right.
And loving why we get LSU players. Like, remember when Sean Payton was coaching, we never get LSU players ever since he left. We've been getting LSU players.
Yeah. I mean, it has been a long line of LSU players and guys who come in that played at LSU, which I think we all can appreciate as Saints fans. If you're an LSU fan, of course, there should be an appreciation for that. But I do think that by them doing these things, like signing guys from LSU, taking guys that went to the school into consideration, I do think that they are trying to appease a fan base that understands that. Like, even though they don't be on social media and they act as if they don't, they understand what's going on. They got their ears to the streets, and they understand how fans feel about certain things and certain practices that they do. So I do feel like that was the New Orleans Saints trying to buy some good favor for the fan base, because, you look at a guy like Dennis Allen, who hasn't proven himself as a head coach. At least you want to get some of the fans on board, right? And have them excited about where the direction that the team is actually going in. And if you can actually add some guys that the fan base is familiar with, it will make you more open to maybe accept Dennis Allen as a coach.
Agreed. I do got a question before I get off.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think we'll get a wide receiver from the trade or free agency?
To be honest with you, unless something happens in OTAs, minicamp, I don't see that happening. I really believe that the New Orleans Saints wide receiver room is good enough to go out there and be formidable. Now, do I think they have the best wide receiver room in the NFL? No, I do not. But they do have a cast of individuals that have played at a high level, that have shown that they have elite skills. I'm expecting to see Chris Olave take an extra jump in year 2. Hopefully Michael Thomas can get his health situations together. We've seen Rashid Shaheed, he came in the middle of the season. Hopefully he'll be able to build on that momentum that he had. Also, you have Brandon Edwards, who I feel like the only thing that's been stopping him is opportunities. I think that he can be a really good, solid receiver. A.T. Perry is a guy that I think can emerge. And then also you got guys like Dejon Dixon, Quan Baker, and also Kirk Merritt, guys that's been here on the team who maybe done some things in the offseason to get a little bit better. So if you look at this wide receiver room, I know it's not loaded with names and loaded with prestige and guys that were all pros and stuff like that. But I think they have a good cast of characters that can get the job done, man, and really make some noise offensively. And then also you have Derek Carr, who has kind of proven that, he can work with some guys, even if they have average to below average talent.
I mean, I agree. The only reason I was asking, because I've been seeing, do you think the Raiders should trade Hunter Renfrow?
Right.
And I like to see Rashad Stream getting more reps. So I'm looking to see Chris Olave another step. Michael Thomas play all 4 games.
Right.
Perry, he stalled. I think he was a steal. And Brian Edwards, hopefully he'll make the roster, though.
Right. Well, I could see Brian Edwards making the roster. I think Brian Edwards is a lot more talented than people give him credit for. When you're, when you got a wide receiver room that consists of, I know he's no longer on the team due to tragic circumstances, but when Henry Ruggs first came, he was a first-round pick. He was supposed to be that number 1 guy. And then you had Hunter Renfrow, who was going to get it. Then you had Darren Waller. So he kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit. And I also think that when it came to Brian Edwards, when he came into the league, he was dealing with a foot injury. He was supposed to get surgery on his foot, which he never did. And teams were concerned about what that foot was going to look like when he gets into the league. So that's the reason why he dropped in the 4th round. Probably if he didn't have that, he probably would have been maybe a 2nd, maybe even an early 3rd round pick. But if you look at Brandon Edwards, you look at his size, you look at his skill set, even from when he was at South Carolina, he was always a guy that can win those 50-50 balls. He was a really good route runner, and he's a guy that the Saints can utilize on 3rd down. And the fact that you have Derek Carr, who has a chemistry with him, and he knows what he's capable of doing, I would say Brian Edwards probably more than likely is going to make this team. I'd be shocked if he doesn't.
I think so, too. I mean, I agree with you, though. I mean, that's why reason I was asking about the report and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, look, it's extremely important to have depth at the wide receiver position, and I can understand once again the skepticism about adding to the wide receiver room. I mean, especially since what you've seen in years past, because no matter what we come into the season with, we've been excited about it, but it hasn't been able to be what we want it to be, right? Because it's always your key guys going down, being injured, being lost for the season, lost for multiple games or even longer. So it's hard to really be confident in this room. So you always looking to dot the I's and cross the T's and maybe getting a little bit better. But the thing about the New Orleans Saints this season, I think that they have some supporting cast guys that can fill in and fill voids if some of these number 1 guys go down.
Agreed. And hopefully Cody Burns, I would say the wide receivers coach, I think he'll have be good wide receivers coach.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, he's proven that he has what it takes. The wide receiver room, they like him. They like the way that he challenges them. They like the way that he actually talks to them. And I think that these guys are going to be motivated to play. I think it's definitely a little bit of a change of pace from the wide receiver coach Curtis Johnson, who's a little bit more in your face versus who Corey Burns is a guy who's a motivator and a guy that is a guy that was willing to challenge you. So it's a little bit different. I think guys are happy about it, and should be interested to see how this is going to pan out. Hopefully Michael Thomas, can play the entire season, and Chris Olave takes that step forward to be that number one guy that we need him to be in the future.
Me too. And also, before I get off, besides about this whole tight ends, we haven't got tight end ever since Jimmy Graham left.
Yeah, I said this earlier, Dalton, at the beginning of the show. I think sometimes when we look at the tight end position, we look at the top tight ends, not as far as blocking, but we look at it as far as them being playmakers. And once again, like we look at that and we look at that as the standard, but we don't realize that, you as a tight end, you got to be able to block. You got to be able to be on the field constantly, right? And it goes way beyond just being a pass catcher. And I get that Jimmy Graham was like a really good tight end as a pass catcher. But if you look at Jimmy Graham as a blocker, he was terrible. That was one of the main reasons why it was so hard for him to make that transition in Seattle. He was barely on the field when he first was traded to him because he had to learn how to block. And we know that Seattle, they like to run a football up there, right? So it was a little bit of a struggle. The thing about the New Orleans Saints and what Sean Payton can do with Jimmy Graham was able to put him and line him up as a wide receiver. So even though he was a tight end, a lot of the plays that were called for him, you'll probably have a wide receiver doing it. So I understand that we want the 1,000-yard tight ends and we want the 80-catch tight ends, but if you have an offense and you have wide receivers that can get it, right? If you have a tight end that can work the middle of the field, make plays when necessary, and move the chains when necessary, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think it's only a big of a deal if you have a wide receiver room that is incapable of making plays, that are incapable of winning one-on-one matchups. The Saints don't have that problem. So I don't think you need a 1,000-yard tight end. I just think that you need a guy who probably can be like between 550, 600 yards, maybe give you about 7 or 8 touchdowns, probably even less than that, maybe even 6, if you have yourself some really good wide receivers.
Agreed. Ever since Jimmy Graham got traded to the Seahawks, he has never been the same, in my opinion.
No, he wasn't. Because, Dalton, the thing about it is what I just mentioned. He was a guy who was 6'7", 260 pounds, who the Saints would line up at wide receiver. That was the big rift between the organization and him. The fact that he was being utilized as a wide receiver, and I don't know if you remember, he wanted wide receiver money, right? So when we look at Jimmy Graham, we're like, man, we need a tight end like that. But if you look at it, he wasn't really a tight end, right? He was a wide receiver. He really played the wide receiver position, but his position title was tight end. But when he went to Seattle, they expected him to be a tight end, right? And what a tight end is not just about catching passes, it's about blocking. And he couldn't do it. So, I mean, he got better as time went on. And I want to say he had a really good season. I want to say he had maybe like 12 or 13 touchdowns his second year with Seattle. But Seattle had to have him off the field when he first got there because he couldn't block.
Right, and let's not forget, he did play for the Packers. Bears.
Right. Which one they didn't expect for him to block. I mean, if you look at the offensive schemes of the Green Bay Packers, a lot of throwing of the football. They had Aaron Jones out there, which is a guy who kind of is similar to that of an Alvin Kamara, not really looking to run in between the tackles, more like, stretch plays and toss plays, right? They came up with all these exotic offensive plays, and that gave Jimmy Graham the opportunity to be kind of similar to what he was in New Orleans, right? Maybe a red zone threat, more of a guy who you're just out there, maybe, move the chains a little bit on third down. And not to mention, like, he was towards the end of his career during this time, right? You still had Richard Rodgers out there. Richard Rodgers was the guy that was the main tight end that was on the field for the blocking for Aaron Jones. And you had Jimmy Graham out there in the red zone, 50-50 balls, throw it up 6'7", he gonna come down and get it. And it was the same way with the Chicago Bears, right? I mean, when they played the Saints in a wild card game a couple of years ago, I mean, that touchdown he caught and he ran, out of the stadium or whatever like that. That's kind of how his bread has been buttered his entire career. I mean, he was a tight end who basically he was a wide receiver masquerading as a tight end. And you're not going to always get that, Dalton, unfortunately. And sometimes that can kind of, sway our judgment, because when we see tight ends playing like that, I think sometimes we got to look at the formations and the way that teams are actually utilizing them. And if you look at it, they're probably using them almost as like slot receivers, or even, wide receivers, basically. So I think sometimes that gives us like this false sense of reality, like, man, we need a tight end like that. But some of these tight ends probably can play receiver and find success in doing it too.
Agreed.
Yeah. But Dalton, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. Thank you, man. Always a pleasure calling in, man. And be sure to call in anytime. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for having me on there, and thank you. I mean, love to be on there, show with you, and I'll welcome back. Always come on the shows. Thank you again, bro.
All right. Thank you, Dalton, man. Take care.
And you too.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Shouts out to Dalton, man. Always come in with good questions and good content. And yeah, I think that with Jimmy Graham, I think it gives fans a false sense of reality of what the tight end position is. And also the great tight ends that are in the league right now, right? I keep on mentioning Kittle. I keep on mentioning Kelsey. You can mention T.J. Hawkinson. Is another guy. Dallas Goedert is another guy. Another guy that I expect to be a dog in the future, Darnell Washington. I feel like some of these guys give you a false sense of reality of what a tight end is supposed to be. And because they're so successful at it, we want some of that, because we all know that, it's a copycat league. It's not just teams looking at other teams like, man, let's just run a formation like this. It also like trickles off into the fandom as well, right? As a fan, we're not just watching Saints games, right? We're watching NFL games too, right? We're watching some of these elite teams go out there with some of these players, and we watch these guys and we like, man, this dude a dog, and we're tweeting and we're getting upset, and they're making the offensive, plays look so easy. And we're like, man, why we can't get something like this? Why can't we use our tight ends like this? But number one, we have to account for the fact that tight end is special. And number two, we also have to account for the way that they're playing offensively. A lot of these tight ends are wide receivers and playing as wide receivers, but we just looking at them as tight ends. Let me go ahead and read some of your comments, and then we're going to go ahead and get up out of here. It says, Josh says, if we are being real, the Seahawks probably got one of the best wide receiver rooms in the league. Geno is going to eat. Yeah, I mean, look, you got Tyler Lockett, who I feel like is one of the most underrated wide receivers in football, him along with Keenan Allen, who have been doing it for a long time. If they need a big play, all you got to do is throw it up to Tyler Lockett. Dude is an absolute beast. You got DK Metcalf out there. He's the monster out there. And now you adding Jackson Smith and Jigba out there as well. So, I mean, look, they got some very, very talented wide receivers. And now you have Metcalf and you got Smith and Jigba out there. These two guys are going to be that 1-2 punch once Tyler Lockett decides to hang it up when his career is all said and done, or, if he decides to go elsewhere, if Seattle wants to move on. But they are a very good room. They were really good offensively last year. They hit the ground running. Geno was lighting it up towards the beginning of the season. They were averaging about 30-plus points a game. So with that, we know that they want to be able to be that effective offensively, but we know that they had to take a step back because the Legion of Boom got older and they had to move on from some guys. They had to try to find different ways in order for them to replace some of these other, seasoned veterans and stuff like that that's been mainstays. Last season, they end up getting Kobe Bryant. This year, they end up getting the cornerback out of Illinois. So these two guys are going to be that young guy. You got they were trying to replace Marshawn Lynch. They got that in Kenneth Walker. So the Seattle Seahawks, we know they don't go out here and just spend a bunch of money in free agency. I look at them as like how the Green Bay Packers have done it. They try to do it through the draft, and they try to build through the draft, and they have a really good coaching staff to develop these guys. So I expect for them to be successful going forward. You know, Seattle has always been one of those teams that makes the playoffs. They've always been one of those teams that, you know, end up picking in the late teens, early 20s, right? The only reason why they were picking this early is because of a deal that they made with the Denver Broncos for Russell Wilson, right? They made the playoffs. You know, they end up losing to the 49ers, but if it wasn't for that Denver Broncos pick, Seattle wouldn't have been picking in the top 10. So with that, that was a good management by their GM, understanding where Russell Wilson was as a player and being able to finesse the Denver Broncos in the process. So, but yeah, I expect for them to be like a really good football team going forward. And I expect for Geno to be able to build off that momentum. Hopefully that last season wasn't just an outlier. I don't believe it was. Can the Saints finally get rid of Traquan Smith and replace him with Shaq Davis? Smith been on this team too long. Well, Willie, look, I think it's pretty much do or die for Traquan. As you've seen last season, his production started to dip a little bit. You know, there were very few Traquan sightings. You know what I'm saying? I probably would have seen Bigfoot before I seen Traquan. But seriously, look, Traquan Smith, the one quality that he had, and we've all said this on the show, and we kind of made a joke out of it, was his ability to be able to block, you know, on the outside when Alvin Kamara is running those stretch plays, those toss plays. But look, you can find guys that can go out there and block, you know, anywhere. Or you got to rely on your coaching staff to be able to get those wide receivers that are on the edge, you know, being able to have good containment, you know what I'm saying, so the running backs can be able to get through on some of them toss plays. But look, I don't think that this is going to save Traquan anymore, to be quite honest with you. You know, I mean, I think that one thing that has been saving him was his ability to do that. But I just think that Traquan is basically on borrowed time. You know, you look at Traquan last season, the Saints allowed him to test the free agent market. The only team that called was the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons called probably because Terry Fontenot was extremely instrumental in bringing him to New Orleans out of Central Florida in the first place. So I just think that they probably just tried to kick the tires on it, and nobody, you know, wanted him. And no, that's not a knock on Traquan Smith. That's just reality. And the Saints allowed him to come back, and he didn't do anything. Like he had like one really good game. I want to say maybe against Carolina where he went over 100 yards, and you know that was a pretty, you know what I'm saying, pretty good game. It makes you wonder, like, you know, if Jameis Winston was his quarterback all year long, maybe Traquan Smith probably would have, you know, had 600-700 yards or something like that. So we know that he's capable of making plays. It seemed like him and Jameis are on the same page. You know, every time Jameis goes out there, it seems like Traquan Smith channels his inner, you know, Steve Smith. I don't know. But regardless to what, you know, you may think about him, he's made plays in certain situations. You know, like I remember Traquan making a play in that classic game versus the 49ers. I can remember Traquan, you know, making plays against Philadelphia. I mean, they kind of stick out. And also, what the funny thing about it is, Traquan is always the recipient of a pass by Drew Brees that symbolizes history. Like when Drew Brees broke the season completion percentage record, right? Traquan caught the pass for a first down. When Drew Brees threw for the yards record or something like that, Traquan Smith was the one that caught the 61-yard touchdown. So it's funny that we joke around about Traquan being on his team, but he's always on the receiving end of a historical catch, you know, of some level of significance. Like if you go to Canton right now, if, you know, there's a Drew Brees jersey there that was played in a game, you know, if you look at the card, it's going to say Drew Brees passed to Traquan Smith, or when he broke the completion percentage record, it's going to say Drew Brees on third down to Traquan Smith. Like you can't knock history, you know what I'm saying? Traquan is a part of it, you know. So Foster Moreau, thank you very much for the $2. Says I'll be ripping them. Better not start calling me Fartster Monroe. Well, I hope he doesn't. I'm pretty sure he won't. TJ, Foster Moreau able to play with his condition, or is this deal just something for the future? Well, King Arthur, he according, I don't want to say like confidently, this isn't coming from me, but I seen, shouts out to my guy Ross. I seen Ross Jackson talking about it on social media. He said that he's more than likely going to be able to play this season with no complications. Jeremy Fowler of ESPN also mentioned that, said that he should be ready, without any complications. So this isn't just a we like you, we are committed to you type thing. Of course, that's the reason why they signed him, but it's the fact that he will be able to play this season. There's a strong possibility that he will play this season, which is a plus. But I'm more happy about the guy being able to, be happy and healthy, more so than him actually catching the football for our viewing pleasure and our enjoyment. Should expectations be higher or lower for the team for the upcoming season with all the new guys coming in? Well, look, I'm not one of those people that want to be Debbie Downer. That's not me. But I'm kind of on the side of I'm reserving my judgment until I see everything goes into play. I don't feel like that makes you less of a fan. I just think that what the Saints have shown you from last year, there's a level of skepticism on my end. And I don't feel like I'm less of a Saints fan for feeling that way. If you're confident in what you see, I can understand that too, because there's a lot of things to be confident about. But we don't play games on paper. We don't play games like we're playing Madden and simulating the season. If we simulated the season based on the moves the Saints have made, they'll more than likely make the playoffs. But you got to play in between the lines, and you got to go out there and execute. So to me, I got a wait and see approach. If you don't have that approach, I can understand that too. But I can't just jump out of the window just based on some guys that I've seen and I recognize. I got to see this thing come together. Dana, who that sister? TJ, are we going to beat Denver? I would hope so. I would hope they would beat Denver. If they play them, you know what I'm saying? I would hope that they do that. But if they, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? To be honest with you, it should be interesting. Sean Payton is a really good head coach. And going up against DA in practice, we know that those are some interesting practices. But there are times where DA gets the best of Sean Payton's offense. So who's to say that it won't happen again? We'll see. Traquan is a disappointment to me. Trade him. Well, I don't know if you're going to be able to trade him. And if you trade him, what are you going to be trading him for? Traquan hasn't, and I'm saying this respectfully, Traquan hasn't done enough to garner a trade of any type of value. You know what I'm saying? Like, if a team gives you something, they're probably going to give you like a 7th-round pick for him or something like that. Probably not going to do it at all. He has to show that he is worth the trade. So I don't think that's going to happen. It's more than likely he's going to get cut, because nobody's going to really give you nothing for a guy that's been on your bench for the majority of the season and just kind of comes in like when somebody goes limping off the field. Like, you ain't going to get much for that. Traquan Smith has almost half of his yards in the only game that mimic his role in college with a quarterback who is elite in immediate passes. It makes you wonder. Well, all I'm saying is I'm not looking at Traquan Smith as to be the number one receiver on my team, right? If you have a problem with Traquan at this particular point, it's probably because you just tired of looking at him wearing number 10. That's it. Because, I mean, he doesn't really play too much of a role. And he's like, what is he really doing exactly? You know what I'm saying? Sometimes I even forget he's on the team. And once again, that's not a knock on him. That's just what it is, because he rarely ever gets the opportunity to play. And when he's on the field, does anybody notice? I know I don't. TJ, it looks as though our roster is coming together nicely. We're adding to both sides of the ball, and we still have money. And I think like 4 or more spots on the roster to add more players. Yeah, the team is coming together nicely. And like I said, I can understand why people are excited about that. And you should be, but I just have this wait and see approach. I just want to see this thing come together. And I want to just make sure that everything is just on up and up. That's just the way look, I'm not trying to knock anybody for being excited. I'm just not. But I just got to see this thing work out, because I can remember being really excited and being on pins and needles for the season to start. And I was actually in attendance for the first game versus the Falcons, and the Saints winning in heroic fashion. And, it was great, right? And I thought they were going to be able to build off that momentum. And unfortunately, things just started to go from bad to worse. And, they had a really good squad last year, and they have a really good squad this year. But hopefully history won't repeat itself. Excuse me. TJ, where do you see A.T. Perry fitting in our offense, or is he just a depth piece? Well, if you follow A.T. Perry, you know that he has all the tools to be a really good wide receiver. At Wake Forest, he broke all type of records. I don't know if you want to just, take that with a grain of salt. I mean, the fact that it is Wake Forest. Wake Forest is more of a basketball school. Guys like Chris Paul and Tim Duncan to come to mind, right? But he did break these records, and you can't just poo-poo at that right there, right? He has the height. He has the skill set. He has the ability. Do I feel like the Saints kind of got, this guy on a kick the tires type thing, and maybe he'll turn into what we need him to be? Yeah. Do I expect for him to come in and be like the starting roster at wide receiver consists of Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, A.T. Perry? It would be a shock to me if that's the case, because I still think that if we're looking at the pecking order, I still would put Shaheed ahead of him. I would put Brian Edwards ahead of him based on his veteran leadership. May not want to hear this. I'll put Traquan ahead of him because of his knowledge of the playbook. So he has an uphill battle. And not to say that he won't be in the rotation. I do think that he's going to make the team. I think he's going to make the final 53, but I don't see him as like that guy. I don't think the Saints are looking at him to be that guy, at least not right now. But if he ends up being that for the New Orleans Saints, I think it'll be a plus for him. But I just think that they actually just got him because of his skill set, because of the way that he plays the position, the records that he broke at Wake Forest, and the fact that you got some possibilities of him being a really good, solid receiver on your team. Is Juice Landry coming back? I don't think that Jarvis Landry is coming back. Jarvis Landry dealt with some injuries for the last few years. When he did play last season, he looked like a mere shell of himself. He looked old. He looked slow. I don't know if some of that was the fact that he was dealing with injuries, or it was just the fact that maybe Father Time is undefeated. I do not know. Do I want to see Jarvis Landry continue his career in the NFL? Yes, I do. But from what I seen last year, if it didn't have anything to do with the injuries, he looked old and he looked slow. There were times where, he could have caught passes, didn't. There were some plays that he could have made, didn't. And I think that as a Saints fan, we expected more out of Jarvis Landry than he gave us. The only thing that Jarvis Landry got, in my opinion, was a check. You know what I'm saying? He deserved his money. I ain't saying take the money away from the guy, but, I'm pretty sure that if you're a Saints fan and you're just being real, the only reason why, if you think about it, the only reason why Jarvis Landry should be on the team, if you're being honest, the only reason you would want him on that team is because of, him being a Louisiana native and him going to LSU. But when it comes to like his production, like if we're being real, does he deserve to even be in the conversation of coming back? No. Like he's one of those guys, like if you start to have depth issues towards the middle of the season, then you give him a phone call because he understands the playbook and he's been here before. But he's definitely shouldn't be top priority. And I'm pretty sure he'll end up on somebody's team because of, because of namesake and his talent, his ability. Maybe some team feel like they can be able to catch that lightning in a bottle again. But I wasn't it was very lackluster. The performance of Jarvis Landry last season. Let's see. What was the game his helmet popped off? I don't know if we're talking about Traquan or we're talking about somebody else. If we're talking about Traquan, probably that Falcon game. And I don't think it popped off. He took his helmet off and he got a penalty because of it. He says, are you going to attend the game this season? Yeah, I'm going to be attending some games this season. I plan on doing some traveling, man. I know I'm going to go to Atlanta Falcon game that's in Atlanta. I'm going to go to the Carolina Panthers game. And I'm going to I'm going to come down to some games in New Orleans. So, I definitely plan on coming to some games. That's definitely going to happen. That's definitely going to happen. 100%. TJ, what is the likelihood that AK doesn't get suspended at all? I'm going to be honest with you. As quiet as it has been on the home front, and the more that his lawyers begin to like push this case back further and further, I don't see him getting suspended. I don't see him getting suspended because the reality is the NFL can't make a verdict on him until the verdict comes out with this whole case. And I think what the lawyers and his team is actually doing, they keep on pushing the case back further and further and further. And they're hoping that the guy, comes in and maybe just says, man, I'm just tired of this, or he exhausts his funds. That's what it seems like to me. Seems like, they playing a waiting game, right? Playing big bank, take little bank type stuff. Like, okay, you know what I'm saying? Like, okay, we're going to keep on pushing this back further and further and further. I have the money to pay my lawyers. Do you have the money to pay yours? Right? So if I keep on pushing this back further and further and further, I'm just waiting on, the plaintiff to run out of money. And I think that's probably what's going on here. And if he decides to just drop the case and just be like, man, forget it, or, he just comes off with a slap on the wrist and paying a fine, then I don't think he's going to get suspended. But if he gets found guilty and this case goes to trial, then I do feel like he's going to get suspended. But the way that they keep on pushing these cases back, I don't see that happening. I don't see him, quite honestly, getting suspended. Hope to make 2 days of training camp and 2 games. Well, I hope that you do. LOL, y'all the Las Vegas Saints. LOL, good luck. Derek is going to ball. Yeah, looking like we're the Las Vegas Saints right now. Look like the Las Vegas Saints. The Falcons looking like the New Orleans Falcons. Man, it's just crazy, But I guess when you have experience with an organization, you have a tendency of like trying to get talent from that said organization, or in Dennis Allen's case, he's worked with these guys in the past. So it's like, okay, I know this guy and we work together with the Raiders. So that's what it's looking like. And then on top of that, with the whole Derek Carr thing, I mean, he drafted Derek Carr. So, and also with the Falcons, I mean, you got Terry Fontenot over there who kind of, got his start with New Orleans. So a lot of the things that he saw and a lot of players that he's getting, he was instrumental in bringing them to New Orleans, right? Dave Alumata, right? Caden Ellis, right? I mean, Tyler Davison was another one, even though Tyler Davison was gone before him, but I'm just saying, like, guys like that, these guys are familiar with one another. And not to mention, you get an opportunity to play these guys twice a year. So there's nothing new under the sun. Everybody on that team's capabilities, what their tendencies are, their strengths and their limitations, like, all these things, right? So as far as I'm concerned, like, it's no surprise that you start to see guys go to other teams within a division, because that team has a larger sample size to know what type of player they're getting on the field if they were to sign with them. TJ, do you see us using all 3 running backs consistently? Chosen, no, I don't. I don't see that. I see the Saints running into a problem. I said this. Shouts out to my guy, Emery Hunt. He was on the show a couple of days ago, and I was talking to him about it, and I said, I see a situation kind of similar to 2017, right? When the Saints drafted Alvin Kamara out of Tennessee in the 3rd round, then you had Mark Ingram, right? And they were supposed to be the 1-2 punch. And then all of a sudden, the Saints went out and got veteran running back Adrian Peterson. And the issue was Sean Payton being able to utilize all 3 of these guys. Now, to be honest with you, we've had concerns about Pete Carmichael and his ability to be able to utilize this talent that we have already as a team, right? As a Saints fans, like, we look at these guys and we're like, why is he not using Alvin the way that Sean was using? Why is he not using them in screen game? Why is he not running them on wheel routes? Why is he not running angle routes? Why is he, why is he not running stretch plays and toss plays? We've already had issues when it comes to Pete Carmichael being able to utilize guys like Taysom Hill, guys like Alvin Kamara. So I feel that you're going to run into a problem. you're going to have guys that are going to be extremely upset and extremely frustrated if they cannot hit the field, especially if those guys have something to offer, right? So I think that you're going to run into an issue. And somebody asked me, you know, do I feel like the New Orleans Saints could possibly trade Alvin Kamara? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I'll be like, nah, that's crazy. But there's a possibility. Or they're going to have to trade somebody else, especially if Kendre Miller ends up being everything that the Saints expected him to be. If he's catching the ball out of the backfield, if he's running in between the tackles, if he's running guys over, if he's showing glimpses of what he did at TCU, then you're going to find yourself wondering if one of these guys are expendable. Same way when it came to Alvin Kamara in 2017. Alvin Kamara kind of started off a little slow, and then that Detroit Lions game happened, and the next thing you know, man, I got to get this dude the football. And it made Adrian Peterson expendable. So my question is, if Kendre Miller is able to, I ain't saying be it Alvin Kamara, because I do feel like there's only one of him, but if he can give you more than what you actually thought he can give you, how can you possibly keep all three guys around? I mean, it's a great problem to have, but you're going to find yourself having an angry running back, or you're going to find yourself having to figure out how you're going to be able to utilize all three. And I don't know if Pete Carmichael can do that. Pete Carmichael's, with all due respect, has been having issues utilizing the guys that you need to utilize and making plays for them in order for them to make some noise. So I don't know. I don't know. Y'all hear that? It's quiet. Where them Buccaneers at? I don't know where they at. I don't know where they at. That's a good question. I don't know where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at. I mean, I guess they have a wait and see approach. But the only thing about their wait and see approach, they're not online by doing it. But I thought it was the Vegas DA who actually brought the charges against AK. In that case, the victim is not paying. The state of Nevada would be. If it's a lawsuit, then the plaintiff pays. Yeah, that's the thing. It is a lawsuit. He is suing. Now, I appreciate that. I appreciate that legal stuff right there, because I am not a lawyer. I play one on TV. I'm just playing, but but nah, seriously. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like if the state, has a case against them, then yeah, the state pays. But this guy, I want to say this guy is indeed suing Alvin Kamara. So I don't know. I think that maybe that's one of those cases they keep on pushing it back, because it has to be, right? If the state of Nevada is constantly allowing Alvin Kamara and his team to compete, like push this back, like that's not a good look on the state. So I would have to say, like, this guy, has to. Yeah, I think that the plaintiff has to be the guy that's making this case, go. I can't see that. Like, I cannot see a state just constantly allowing a guy to push, a court date back further and further and further. Like, you're like, man, come on, man, we got to get this thing over with. So I don't know. It's rather, the lawyer and the judge are in bed together. They got some type of rapport. Or Nevada has like one of the worst legal systems in the country. I would hope that's not the case. TJ, are we set at linebacker, or do we add help? I have a wait and see approach on that too. I understand that we no longer have Caden Ellis. P. Warner has been good, but he's not been healthy. But we also have DeMarco Jackson, a guy I felt that was making some momentum in his rookie season. You got DeMario Davis. And I just think the way the Saints actually utilize linebackers, I don't think that it should be an issue unless, you start having guys going down. He said he was coming for the number one running back job. No disrespect to AK. Well, that's what you want to see, and that's what you want to hear. Like, if a guy just comes in, well, I'm good at being that number two guy. I'm just happy. Like, I don't know what type of running back I got, right? I want guys to be grateful and happy that they made the team, but I also want somebody to have some dog in them or something, right? You don't, even if you are number two, you don't want to feel that way. You don't want anybody to think of themselves that way. You want to be number one. And if you still a number two, it's just because you're working on being number one. In your mind, you're still number one. Let's see. Peter Slow. LOL, lawyer and judge. Oh my God. What I said? Did I say lawyer and judge? You know what I'm saying? I hope I did. No, I hope if I didn't, then I apologize. But yeah, the lawyer and the judge are in bed with one another. So I don't know. I would hope that the state is not allowing these cases to prolong just due to the fact of one guy has a high profile lawyer or something like that. I would hope that's not the case. But I want to say thank you all for checking out the State of the Saints podcast. Really do appreciate it. Shouts out to everybody here. Ask that you hit the like button on your way out. Ask that you subscribe to the channel. Please subscribe to the channel. We're at 9,800 subscribers. So we're about, well, I think we less than 200. I think we were like at 9,802 or something like that. So we're less than 200 subscribers away from 10,000 subscribers. So if you have not subscribed, please subscribe today. Also subscribe to the Gumbo Pot Sports Podcast channel. Okay, Gumbo Pot Sports Podcast channel available on YouTube. Make sure you check that out tomorrow on both platforms, both the State of the Saints and the Gumbo Pot Sports Podcast. Going to have my guy, Brian McFadden from CBS Sports, two-time Super Bowl champion with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's going to be talking to us about the NFC South and also some of the storylines that's going on around the NFL. So make sure that you keep it locked right here to the State of the Saints podcast. Next week, got my boy James Boyd. He writes for the Athletic for the Indianapolis Colts. We're going to be talking to him about Anthony Richardson and also the schedule for the Indianapolis Colts. Also next week, we're going to have Mike Detillier back on the show to talk to us a little bit about Saints football and what he expects the 2023 season to look like. So it's going to be jam-packed. Got plenty of guests coming up real soon. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. Also, make sure that you check out the Gumbo Pot Sports Podcast website, which is gumbopotsports.com, gumbopotsports.com. There you can find the audio version of the State of the Saints podcast. You can also find articles that are written. I try to write 2 articles per day, one NFL article, one New Orleans Saints related article. Today I wrote one about Fresno State quarterback Jake Haener and him being compared to a legendary quarterback. Make sure you check that out. And also Dan Campbell talking about Hendon Hooker waiting his turn, and being able to develop into the quarterback they need him to be in Detroit. So make sure you check that out. gumbopotsports.com is the place to be. We ain't got no subscriptions, you know what I'm saying? Ain't got no paywalls, nothing like that. No disrespect to anybody getting money. But I just want to be able to give people a platform that they can enjoy to read sports. And that's just the way that it goes. Okay. Previous episodes available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor FM, also a part of Megaphone, Belly Up Media. And also check out Belly Up Media on Twitter and follow me on Twitter at TJAY Jones 8. Till next time, all I got to say is, who that?
Hey, don't let these tears fool you. There's all dog around this mug. I'm good.